our laws as it pertains to substances are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for Christ's sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. You have trouble you can't stop and you want help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say. Thank you so much. And we are going to be taking questions from Clubhouse as well as looking at the Restream. Hi, guys on Restream. We appreciate you guys being here as well. Tom Cigar, as usual, first up. Let's get right to the Clubhouse calls. There's a lot of things to talk about today. And so we're going to get what's on your mind. Derek, your hand. Whoops. Hold on a second. Derek, I want to get you in here. Your hand went up immediately. And Nicholas, hold on 1 second. Derek was first up here. Derek, go ahead. What's going on?
Dr. Drew, can you hear me?
I do. Hear me?
Awesome, man. Hey, I was wondering what you think about this Cal OSHA thing that they're talking about masks.
Yeah, very interesting.
For a long time.
It's so funny. I was just reading about that. I don't know quite what to make of it. In other words, if people want to take risk and not get vaccinated, that's up to that individual. And shouldn't they be the ones that wear masks? And so their policy is essentially that because they're having trouble distinguishing between vaccinated and unvaccinated, they're going to just make everybody wear masks. And as the only state in the union that is even contemplating anything like that, as the case rate continues to decline at an accelerating rate, it seems bizarre, doesn't it? Did I lose you? Oh, Derek dropped off. But this Cal OSHA thing is very interesting. I don't know if people have alternative ideas about it. I'm certainly open to that. But it is a wild notion that that if somebody doesn't want to take the vaccine, and by the way, the risk. I mean, let's say you were in LA County, we had yesterday 100 cases. I mean, how likely are you to be exposed to somebody with COVID? And again, what are the risk benefits of mask versus not mask? It really is sort of extraordinary. But all right, that is the infinite wisdom of California. Nicholas, what's going on?
Hi, I have a question on masks as well.
Yeah.
So at the start of the pandemic, the government was saying that to avoid PPE shortages, healthcare workers had to reuse N95s.
Right.
But at the same time, they were also recommending reusable respirators made by dozens of manufacturers called elastomeric respirators.
Right.
So I was wondering why the elastomeric respirators weren't used and how come the government haven't been promoting them since last year.
I think there's a series of things. Okay, the first mess up, the first controversy is when Dr. Fauci said masks aren't useful. And the reason he did that was twofold. One, we were at that point not properly distributing PPE, so there was an issue with getting PPE. And I understand that he didn't want there to be a rush on it, number one. But number two, there was still a concern that this virus was transmitted like influenza, meaning with children and with hand contact. And as such, hands to the face is the thing you want to avoid more than anything else for transmission. Oh, Nicholas, your thing is loud there. So the original controversy had a well-meaning intent to it, but it was doesn't look good in retrospect, number one. Number two, we have to distinguish between trying to protect other people and trying to protect ourselves. If you remember, as the pandemic evolved, the reason that people were being advocated to wear masks was to prevent droplet transmission. You were going to protect other people by preventing droplets from coming out of your mouth and going farther. There were biological engineers that were concerned that N95 over the mouth actually created aerosols and increased the distance the virus could go. So in terms of protecting other people, N95 may not be the best alternative. But when I'm walking into an ICU with a COVID patient and I want to protect myself, N95 and the respirators are the ways I would do that. That makes sense?
It does make sense. Now, with elastomeric respirators, the CDC did say they protected against droplet and airborne,
Right.
and they've been recommending them for years.
Right. For protecting me. But their goal was to protect in a large, and again, if you look at the original Danish study that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, it showed about a 15% efficacy of masks. And so they weren't going for 100% efficacy. And you can look at the disease outbreak. I mean, you can see there were, not until we got an actually effective barrier, vaccines, does the whole thing fall out of bed. When we're using masks and distancing, the virus had its way with us. It just went nuts. It wasn't doing much, really. It doesn't seem, maybe 15% or something. Then that's good. That's not nothing, but it's nothing compared to vaccine therapies, which clearly have had a much more significant effect on the outbreak. Derek, I see you're back there. What's going on?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
About that, Dr. Drew. Yeah, I thought that's really interesting. We're trying to get people back to work. I don't think anyone's gonna, opt to go back, and they're gonna have to wear a mask after the vaccine and stuff. Just kind of concerned about.
It's kind of wild, isn't it? I mean, but why they just in California? If it's such a great idea, why isn't it necessary in other states? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, and I also saw that there was a study that came out that said like 10% of LA County is planning to move within the next year.
Oh, I'm sure of that. I'm sure of that. I think the number's higher. I was down on Skid Row yesterday looking at what a great job we're doing there, and it's again every time I go,
snippet.
Yeah, it's I'm going to do something on Fox 11 tonight to talk about that, but. LA County, California's catastrophe, and LA County is a very special catastrophe within California. So, of course, people are leaving. Of course they are. I mean, every young person I know is trying to find a way to get out of here.
Yeah, well, thanks for everything, Dr. Drew.
All right, man.
Keep them high and tight.
Keep them high and tight, Derek.
Calling it from the East Bay, and we appreciate everything, man. Have a good day.
All right, Mommy. Take care. Again, keep it high and tight is your mom's house reference. And those with your hands up, again, you're going to be on Restream here on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope as well. And I hope I'm going to pronounce your name correctly. Adi, is that correct?
Dr. Drew, hello.
How are you, sir? How are you?
Can you hear me?
I do, loud and clear. It's good connection.
Oh, great. I have two different questions, but both involve vaccines and treatment.
Okay.
One is a real-world case that I'd like your take on.
Okay.
It involves somebody I know.
Mm-hmm.
He got fully vaccinated with the Moderna shot, and then he decided to become his own guinea pig because he's been doing a lot of research. So he told us that 2 months after he got his second Moderna shot, he decided to go get a booster shot and went off and got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
Wow.
We were kind of horrified that he did that because it's like, first of all, it's not necessary.
Yes.
And second of all, was he opening himself up to any kind of side effects or reactions? And whether or not that might be overbaking the cake, as some of us said.
Well, we don't know because there's no research on that, and I know of no research on crossover vaccines, let alone anything good on a booster within close proximity of the second vaccine. So I don't know what he's up to. I hope he does okay. I worry about clotting side effects. It's very clear that particularly the Johnson & Johnson causes essentially a consumptive coagulopathy. It's thrombocytopenia is being seen in some cases. I had all kinds of side effects from the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. I took that vaccine before some of the data was out. I just wanted to do one vaccine. There was actually no reason for me to get vaccinated because I know for sure my immunity is off the chain in terms of having had a moderate severe case of COVID.
Yep.
And one of the things that's problematic about the vaccine therapies right now is and your friend is another example of this. One of the most significant concerns in medicine is unnecessary medical procedures. It's considered one of the most serious ethical violations to subject a patient to an unnecessary medical procedure. You could argue that every patient who has had COVID, who is being mandated to have a vaccine to travel or whatever, is being subjected to an unnecessary medical procedure. And that's a pretty serious thing. And your friend at this point took an unnecessary medical procedure. That's all I know about what he did. Where did he even come up with this idea? It's sensational.
Oh, well, he'd been reading up about cross vaccines because apparently there's some research that suggests that if you take one type of vaccine, like the mRNA vaccine, and then later on you take an adenovirus vaccine, it might give you a wider spectrum of immunity.
I see where that
any advice at all. He went off and did this.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's craziness.
And he even said, you know what? In a few months, I'd quite like to go get the Chinese vaccine. And we were like, first of all, you're nuts. Second of all, you need to go to China or Asia to get that vaccine. And China's not letting anyone fly into China unless you've gotten the Chinese vaccine.
And let's remind him, physicians, even people that are medically trained, don't treat themselves. Mm-hmm. We don't treat ourselves. And he has no medical training and has no business treating himself. Now, if he can find somebody that wants to put him into a research protocol or monitor him properly or somehow cooperate with this cockamamie idea, great. I mean, we might learn something, but he is, as far as I can tell, only subjecting himself to harm, right? I mean, I can't see.
Yeah. The irony is that he is one of the luckiest people I have ever met, because so far he's fine. He got the Johnson & Johnson back in May, and he's just going about his life, but he got no reactions whatsoever to the Moderna shot, either of them, and he seems to have had no reaction to the Johnson & Johnson shot either.
How lucky. How old is he?
He's about 48, 49.
Well, he's lucky. Why the profound paranoia about getting even mild COVID?
I don't know if he was so much paranoid, since he's somebody who's always been incredibly casual about his life. He seems to be somebody who just likes to jump on a trend. Sheesh. That's all I can say. Has he ever had any biological training of any type? No.
Yeah, that's the scariest thing. What people don't, biology is a very complex phenomenon. And if you think you can predict with accuracy and without data, or you can take risks without data, that is highly inadvisable. Very interesting. Well, thank you for the story. It's really something.
That's something to. Yeah. So I have my second question, and then I'll let everyone else chime in.
Okay.
Remember when there was talk about the nitric oxide nasal sprays as an antiviral treatment against not just the coronavirus, but possibly colds and flus? There seemed to be a lot of talk about that.
There was a lot of early talk about disrupting the binding at the ACE2 receptor, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And there was a number of different things. There's betadine, there's saline, there's nitric oxide. There were some other very specific proteins directed at it. I haven't heard anything recently. Have you heard something?
Well, what I've heard is that one particular company called Sanitize, which is based in Canada, in Vancouver, and partly owned by the Israelis, they've conducted successful tests in possibly the UK, but definitely in Israel, and that they've applied for federal emergency use in Canada. And this was at about 2 months ago, and there hasn't been any further news ever since.
I don't know what to make of it. There's so many crazy little stories out there about, I mean, just go to clinicaltrials.gov and you'll see all the myriad of clinical trials that are going on. It gets a little bewildering to know where to sort of hang your hat in terms of expectation of things that are likely to be useful. But thank you for the story. It's very, very interesting. I appreciate it. Let's get Josh up here. Josh, what's going on?
Hi, Dr. Drew. Sorry.
That's right.
How's it going?
Good. What's happening?
Not much. I just wanted to see what you thought about, how we're kind of getting out of this, coronavirus lockdown, but I don't want it to eclipse this. I feel like there's still a spiritual vacuum or a need, and it's not just going to be about getting back to the baseball park.
Maybe not. That's true. Well, there was a problem before the mess, right?
Yeah. And, I feel like, I don't know if you heard this tennis story about this, she's a top rated player on the women's tour. And she was very stressed out in front of, by the idea of talking with the media, Naomi Osaka. And she eventually quit the tournament. Now, she's a second seed, so she has a chance to win that tournament. And when you're young, you only get so many opportunities. So this is way bigger than people are making it out to be, that she had to quit the tournament because she was so upset.
Right.
And I was wondering if you had read that and what your thoughts were.
I had sort of mixed feelings about it. On one hand, I feel like she should be given proper dispensation as it pertains to her brain conditions as she would if she got pneumonia or a GI bleed or anything else. If a physician signed off and said this is medically inappropriate for her, there should be no questions asked, and that should be that. On the other hand, I don't think people should be able to just say, hey, I don't like how I feel when I'm doing this, or I don't like that, even though she contractually was obliged to do it. She signed a contract where she agreed to talk to the press as part of her responsibility. And I just don't want to do it. And I don't like how it makes me feel. I don't want people to throw those things around either. So to me, it's sort of a mixed phenomenon. I suspect in her specific case, there's something missing in the story. There's more to the story. So that's,
yeah. So in that context, do you think we could be more sensitive in sort of where we draw the line as to what her inner voice was telling her, whether she really just wanted to kind of be like, I'm out of here, or, with so much writing on the line, or whether we can say that she was medically compromised?
And how do you distinguish between those two things?
Well, can we have more sensitivity when we attempt to draw that line?
Well, that's the I don't like it. It doesn't spiritually agree with me is something that she has to sort out in her contractual relationship with her employer, which is the tennis organization. In terms of her medical needs, I think it should be a clear, bright line. If a properly trained physician interviews her and says it's medically appropriate for her not to do something or medically necessary, then it is so. Now, I'm not saying that doctors can't be persuaded and doctors can't, be a little bit, manipulated, whatever. I mean, that's possible, but I still think that's the way to have, particularly in view of how we treat brain diseases so differently than other disorders. And we need to start putting it all in the same basket. Pneumonia, panic attacks, urinary tract infections, it's all just disorders of the human body. And they need to be treated in the record the same, and they need to be treated in terms of how you are managed in the workplace, all the same. But to your point about the spiritual vacuum, man, it's strangely been filled with the religion of politics, it seems to me.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we have a stigma with mental health. Mm-hmm. And I think that in her case, what you're saying is she could have gotten a doctor's note to say.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe not. Maybe they wouldn't have taken it. I don't know.
But what about the stigma associated with having to have a doctor's note now? Now she's publicly medically compromised, and we know how competitive that level is. We can't even comprehend unless you've done it yourself. So the idea is that everyone struggles, especially a woman of color. Mm-hmm. So we need a heck of a lot. I think this whole thing is a disaster that she had to bow out of the tournament, because it makes them look, they may not be, but you almost want to say, is there race involved in this? Mm. And I would just like to say that everyone has issues. Everyone suffers, especially if you're a person of color. And we need to have a much broader discussion on stigma as it relates to people of color in the society that we live in today.
Okay. Isn't that what we're doing?
Well, I think Oprah tried to do it. She did it with Prince Harry. She did this mental health series. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you saw it. Mm-hmm. It was on Apple TV. And they were talking about this, but I don't think they're talking about it enough.
Okay. Well, then I agree. We should talk about it more. It's something we almost can't talk about enough. Thank you, Josh. For those of you in the audience, we are taking calls on any topic. Feel free to ask here. You raise your hand, I'll bring you up to the podium. By raising your hand, though, however, you are agreeing to be also simultaneously streamed on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Periscope. This is Sugar is Poison, which I don't disagree. Hi, Sugar is Poison.
Hi, Dr. Drew. It's amazing you're on Clubhouse.
Here we are.
My question is, I've been reading a lot about environmental pollution, and one of the ones I read is that this top scientists are saying that infertility could reach 50% pretty soon.
Right.
And also the obesity epidemic could reach 60% pretty soon.
Okay.
And I was wondering your thoughts on this, and also if environmental pollution could play a role in like the epidemics of chronic health we've been seeing.
Say it again. The epidemic of what?
The epidemics of some of these chronic health things like mental illness that we've been seeing, if that could also be related to environmental pollution. Thanks.
Okay. I'm not entirely sure what you mean by environmental pollution. Are you talking about like things like BPAs in the environment? Is that what you're talking about? You have to be kind of specific. I mean, you can't just say, oh, environmental, we got to get very specific about the biology, right?
So I think with infertility, it's plastic related.
Right. The BPAs, right. I think that's true.
Oh yeah. With the obesity, that must be diet related.
Okay. So let me kind of talk a little bit in broad strokes about that. Thank you for the question. So BPAs, I'm actually very concerned about this. I think more estrogen effects are into our system than we know. And I think it may affect fertility. I think it may be affecting behavior. I think it may be affecting mood. There is a great book called Estrogenation. I was relatively ignorant to this and I'd heard about it, but I really wasn't up on the seriousness of this until I read that book. And I would suggest if you have any questions at all, it is rather startling how much estrogen containing chemical we are exposed to. And I would urge you to avoid plastics. We all drink out of plastic water bottles. We've gotten so focused on fluids and water that we are ending up exposing ourselves to these BPAs at an incredible rate. Very concerning, definitely affecting fertility. I doubt it's affecting the obesity thing so much, but it might be affecting some of the mental health stuff because estrogen is associated with mood disturbances. As far as obesity, look, we perfected yummy. We've perfected things that are addictive in terms of our food substances and food source. So many of the changes that we've made to food were things that were originally designed to give us high calorie content when calories were in short order or we needed to transport them across space and time. Bread, cracker, whatever it might be. And things like cakes and cookies were exceptional. Those were for the Thurston Howell had cakes and cookies. This is now I'm talking about well into the 19th century. And if you look at the history of Nabisco, you'll see the biscuit and the cookie. These were very few people ever had a cookie. That was something that came over from, I think it was Denmark, if I remember right. And we have absolutely indulged in high starch, high carbohydrate, high fat, and high addictive quality foodstuffs, things that get to our brain right away. I think that people have gotten the message on the fats. I think maybe we've even overemphasized the fat story. And I think that the carbohydrate story is actually probably more significant. Some people will say that the carbohydrate issue is related to the apolipoprotein metabolism, and it's with insulin and the apolipoprotein that in some individuals that the apolipoproteins are able to do their oxidative damage to the lining of our arteries. Not everyone is set up for that genetically. I'm convinced I am. It's increasingly clear that high triglycerides, low HDL is as much of an issue as high LDL. And again, insulin factors in and carbohydrates factor into the triglyceride and HDL metabolism. So we really must pay very close attention to limiting our carbohydrate intake. People have arguments about meat intake. Let's at least agree that real foods, vegetables out of the ground, we overdo. Oh, thank you for putting that book up there. Estrogenation, it's called. Yeah, that's right. It's fruits have now been altered in such a way that they are essentially have as much sugar as a candy bar. And so our excessive sort of sense that fruits are healthy is probably a little bit excessive as well. And again, foods are manipulated for the market to be sold. So we want them. So we want them again and again. And I think we really have to pay attention to eating more vegetables, cruciferous vegetables especially, lean meats. I think that's your best bet. And carbohydrates, certain of us, I really think that we have to dramatically reduce our carbohydrate and certainly our starch intake. So that's my own little pitch on that. Lots of questions here. Let's get Dinara in here. Dinara? Let's see if we can get her up. Give me 1 second while she enters the room. Fruits are sugary, Margaret. That's true. I'm looking at the Dinara, how are you? Dinara?
Can you hear me?
I hear you now.
I raised my hand. I didn't think I would be called to the front. I have a question.
Yes,
yesterday, I was talking to my dad.
Yes.
My dad is 65, and his A1C is 11, and his doctor told him,
wow,
I know.
Not
so
good.
I get not good at all. And there's a lot of things that are going on, and I was trying to get a little bit more information. So basically his average blood glucose is about 300 in the 300s with that A1C level. When you're, for someone his age who's already a sedimentary lifestyle, not a lot of movement, diet, they want to eat what they want to eat.
What is his age?
My dad is 65 years old.
Does he smoke cigarettes?
He dips, which is weird. So let me.
Well,
that's
better than smoking for his situation, but it does increase his risk of head and neck cancer.
Dip is not good either.
No.
I don't think I've seen anyone dip since I was in high school. And during COVID, I took him out for his birthday in April, and we were wearing a mask. And I said, Dad, we were at the same table. You can take your mask down. And he said, oh, it's good. I'm good. And then when he took it down, I noticed he had like the dip pocket, and I have never seen this. Yeah. So it was startling to me. And I think the mask was covering all of that. So there are so many things that are going through my mind. I'm his only child. And I don't want things to spin out of control. Any advice on like how we have, my father's age, he's my parent, he's aging, I'm trying to figure out how to help him because he seems a bit defeated. Yes. He said, oh my goodness, he doesn't really want to talk. He talks about it, but it's the thing that he does not really want to talk about.
I get it. Is there any possibility that you could go to his doctor visits with him? Is that a possibility?
Well, I asked him yesterday and he said, I'll get back.
No, you really got to push it. You got to really push it. Like you got to say, when is your next doctor visit? And you have to say, I'm coming with you.
I did say, when's your next doctor's appointment? He said, oh, I don't know. I will, he just kind of blew me off. And I called him today. He didn't answer because I think he knows why I am calling. Yeah. Okay. But can you just go over a little bit with the group with the A1C, because a lot of people don't really understand
essentially
A1C, what
A1C
it means.
is a more significant measure of your what's called glycemic control, your blood sugar control for diabetics. I'm assuming he's a type 2 diabetic.
Yes.
We got to get you to change that smoke alarm in the background that's chirping at you. You got to put a new 4-volt battery into that smoke alarm.
Who, me?
Yes. Yes.
Mine is not chirping.
Give it about 15 seconds. I think you'll hear it. It's waiting.
Are you serious?
Listen. Listen.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Give it a second.
Okay.
About every 30 seconds or so. Give it a second.
Maybe it's a TV.
No. I'm pretty sure it's a smoke. That. All right, everyone.
I think I heard it.
Yeah, I think I heard it too.
I did. I heard it. I did.
It's somewhere upstairs.
I did not.
It's out in the back.
Yeah,
somewhere.
It is upstairs, and I did not hear it. So you have
I've supersonic
super ears.
Supersonic
yes, I'm
hearing.
Oh my goodness.
So,
do you hear the birds outside?
I hear the birds. I hear the TV. I hear everything. I do. I am blessed with nutty hearing. I've had that forever.
Sure, it's not your ears chirping, Drew.
But no, it's upstairs. I could tell it was not in the. It was not around her. It was somewhere off in the distance. There you go, Caleb's. But let's go. So the A1C is essentially an average of the last 2 weeks. It's like getting the area under the curve for the last 2 weeks. It's like, what has your sugar been like average? If we just measure your blood sugar, we're just getting it in that moment. So your blood pressure, I imagine he came into the doctor's office fasting, his blood sugar would be 200 to 250. But after eating, it probably goes up to 350. And then sometimes late in the day when he's not further out from his medication, it might be 400. And sometimes it might be 150 right after taking medication. The average is sort of taken by the A1C. And the A1C should be under 6. And if you're up towards 7 and 8, you're in bad shape. 11 is not good. It's not good. And do you understand, Dinar, how the high blood sugar causes damage? Why it's a problem?
Yeah, I have an idea, but everyone else may not.
Okay,
so,
it causes a microvascular injury. In other words, the small vessels, the tiniest, most sensitive blood vessels, which supply the nutrients and oxygen to your heart, your kidneys, and your brain, get destroyed by hyperglycemia. And the most serious, and your nerves. So there are 4 areas. So you get peripheral neuropathy, you get numbness in your feet, you get kidney failure, you get cardiac damage and heart failure, and often coronary artery disease is associated with this as well. And you get small strokes or large strokes. You get destruction of the vessels to the brain, which are probably the most sensitive, truth be known. But kidney is very, very common. End-stage renal disease. Is his kidney function okay?
That I do not know. So it is important that I go to his doctor's appointment. Unfortunately, I lost my mother to a very ugly disease that I never knew about, systemic sclerosis.
Progressive PSS, progressive systemic sclerosis. Also,
it was horrible.
Also called scleroderma.
Scleroderma.
So scleroderma is nasty.
It was very ugly.
Pulmonary hypertension, kidney disease, everything. It's just a bad one.
It's a very ugly one, and that happened in November. So I think I'm so on edge about all of these things now. And I feel like prying into someone's personal space and
look, this is an emergency. You don't want to wait until he has the stroke, because then you're going to be prying in all the time, because he's going to need you. But here's the deal. I pretty much guarantee you they want to put him on insulin, and that's what he's trying to avoid. And so that's probably what's going on here. They probably told him he's got to get on insulin, at least short term, till he gets things under control, and he doesn't want to hear it. And they've also told him to get on the diet and stop the dip. I'm sure they've been over this with him. Now, there are ways to get him off insulin and off everything, frankly, if he behaves himself. But in the short term, he has to get that blood sugar under control, and that's that. And so you got to go with him. Find out, just you got to weasel out of him when that appointment is, and you're just going to happen to be there.
Okay. That's what I will do.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. My goodness.
Thank you.
You bet. Oh my goodness. That is rough stuff. That would drive me crazy. All right, Kristen, what's going on here?
Yes. Hi there.
Hey there. What's happening?
Good afternoon.
How are things in Wisconsin?
It's 90 degrees here.
Weird.
It went from 44 degrees the last time we spoke to 90 degrees.
Fantastic. What's happening?
No. So I recently had a doctor's appointment, just because you're supposed to get those every now and then. And I was told, through a discussion, that because I had, I have 3 kids, I had C-sections with all of them because they all have giant heads. And unfortunately, I had really bad keloid scarring with my first. And it looks like I've had additional keloid scarring with C-section number 2 and C-section number 3, which is now looking like they need to do more tests, but they're fearing that it's causing endometriosis.
What's causing endometriosis?
The excessive keloid scarring.
I think that doesn't make sense. Uterus. Oh, inside. I see. Okay.
Yeah,
got it.
Inside my uterus.
Got it.
So when you look at it under an ultrasound, it kind of looks like broccoli.
Got it.
On the inside, or heads of cauliflower.
Yeah.
So one of the things that they were discussing, and again, it's going to take more testing and more scans, but they were talking about doing a partial hysterectomy, just because my cycles are pretty vicious, and I become anemic.
Why partial? Why not do the whole thing? Just curious.
No, I don't know.
Again, and the only reason I ask that is, look at the data. There's all kinds of strange things about hysterectomies. Women do miss their uterus. They feel differently when the uterus is taken out. Now, some women, it's rather substantial, and some women, they don't really notice it. But if you feel like you're maybe one of these people is not going to notice it, you also then wonder, well, why not we take the ovaries out too and just get on replacement therapies? Because that takes away the risk of not just endometrial cancer, but also ovarian cancer.
Yeah,
they used to do things like that. They're doing less of that these days, but it's something to kind of think through.
it's definitely a process, especially because after I had all my children, hormonally, I had terrible, terrible postpartum depression.
Nice.
And I'm also worried that, this kind of surgery is going to have some major effects on my overall mental health.
It can.
All the things that
it can, but I would argue that since scarring is the cause of the endometriosis, if you start going at primary treatment of the endometriosis, those treatments will make you depressed too.
Yeah, they don't sound fun at all.
No. Yeah.
So, and then I'm also just worried about, with having, I have a family to run and kids to take care of.
Yeah.
And
well, there's that.
I don't really have a lot of room for recovery time. So it's just a stressful situation. And I feel like I need to get some more opinions and ask more questions.
I agree. Do some more research on hysterectomies per se. Thank you, Kristen. And I just think that there might be an opportunity on all of those to reduce your cancer risk and to control all of those symptoms. Okay, let's go to Brandon. Brandon, what's going on? Let's get Brandon up here. Hang on one second. Susan, are you in here on the Clubhouse?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
The dog's barking at me.
Oh man, is he? He's been going and going and going.
I can't hear it.
Brandon, what's going on?
Can you hear me?
We got you.
Okay. Well, I had a question about taking a step back to the fertility issues that we're having because of plastics. There's a certain podcaster had a Shayna Swan on, Dr. Shayna Swan. Are you familiar with it?
I'm not.
Excuse me. With the research that she did?
I am not. We can put the book up here that I've sort of lay my fund of knowledge on, and I've spoken to this PhD who did the research. Go ahead and put it up there, Caleb, if you don't mind. There, Estrogeneration. There's the book right there. But go ahead. Okay. Tell me about what you're referring to.
She found some research. She was measuring the taints of I believe a certain kind of mouse or rat, because that's how they determine back before we had all this technology, they would determine who's the run of the litter that way. And I was just wondering, she found something called phthalates, I believe they're called.
Phthalates, yeah. Phthalates, pH.
Really,
yeah.
pH?
Yeah, pH, CH, phthalates. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Phthalates.
And now this is going to get into a little bit of a landmine territory with this question here. But the first thing that popped in my mind, and now this is just a thought, don't cancel me, people, was that the uptick in a lot of I want to say just a confusion around sexuality. I hate to use the word confusion, but a lot.
Well, if you read the book Estrogeneration I just referred to, and it's, I think the BPAs are a type of phthalate, if I remember right. But the phthalates generally have been causing less concern, I think, or they've maybe been, let's see, DPA, BH, yeah, the levels are going down generally. I'm just looking at some recent data here. But that doesn't mean there are concern about plastics. There are. It's just we're trying to zero in on exactly where the concern is. And I have a feeling, put that Estrogeneration screen back up again. Yeah, Dr. J, is that his name? J, yeah, Dr. Anthony J. I think you read his stuff, and I think he's getting closer to really the heat of the problem, because there's a number of different researchers he's quoting in that book that get more deeply into it. Again, for those of you that do come up to the podium, we are going to stream you simultaneously on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope. And Vini, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, asked to come on up. Is it Vini?
Hey, Dr. Drew. Hello. How could you forget me? This is my cousin Vinny.
Oh, Vinny, how are you? Good to talk to you. Yes. Yeah.
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. So, update?
Update. Yes, still working on the TED Talk. You
Good.
Have something. Yeah, I'm just putting my thoughts together. And hello, Susan. I can see you from here.
She is run out to go deal with the dogs. So,
oh,
but she's in the room, but she's not in the room.
I'll say hello to her.
I will.
So my question to you is a very serious thing. How in the US we are trying to get back to new normal because there's nothing called normal, right?
Right. Well,
but at the same time, at least I have updates from India and Brazil. People are still dying, and I knew a friend who was in his early 30s, and 3 or 4 days back he passed away. And there's something called black fungus. So my question to you is, while the countries who are containing or going towards some kind of betterment, but until we are able to do it at a global level, because people are going to travel at some point, right?
Yeah.
What do we do? I mean, where does it end? It's just getting crazy.
So black fungus, first of all, I assume you're talking about mucormycosis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, mucor, I've seen a lot of mucor over the years. It exists here. It gets typically in the eye and sinuses. And there's another mucor-like fungus I've seen. Oh, crap. It starts with an R. I can't remember the name of it. But these are typically in diabetics. So was your friend diabetic?
Not diabetic. You know what? I don't know. Maybe he was overweight though.
Yeah, so he was probably diabetic. And yeah, it's a serious problem. I don't quite get your question. The question is?
My question is, let's keep black fungus for a side. My question is, how do we navigate, even though we say in the US, hey, we're getting back to...
How do we navigate international travel?
Right. Because I'm scared. I travel all the time.
Yeah.
For work. I'm like, should I change my job? What should I do? Like, how
I think you don't want to go into hotspots. Have you had COVID?
No.
And
I'm vaccinated.
You are vaccinated.
Yeah.
I mean, which vaccine did you take?
Pfizer.
Yeah, I mean, you are so thoroughly covered with that vaccine against all the variants now. The only thing you have to worry about is some new yet unidentified variant coming up that it's not giving at least some good protection against. And that's possible in hotspots. So cooperate with mask wearing where it's required and don't go into hotspots. But I don't know. I'm going to do some international travel. I think you should feel pretty confident with the vaccine. It really does work. And it really, every time a new variant comes up, the testing against the variants looks very, very good. A good way to keep up, there's a couple of good, believe it or not, TikToks that keep you up to date. There's a guy named Dr. Nock, who I've interviewed on this show, NOC. You follow him on his TikTok. He gives a daily update on what's going on, particularly as it pertains to vaccine therapies and mutants and variants. And there's another woman who's a virologist, does a really nice job of reviewing the science. It's at Laughter in Light is her handle. And between those two, you can kind of, at least you're armed with adequate amounts of information and kind of, use your judgment from there. Okay. I don't think I would change my job, but I'm not sure I'd go to India right now. Yeah.
I was just joking. My family is all international, so I have to travel. So
well, I want to quickly just recap what you told me last time, which was that you came from a war-torn region, you had lost everything, and you were making a case for resiliency as a response to extreme trauma, right?
Yeah.
That's sort of why I told you to go put a TED Talk together so we can all learn from that. And do you see people responding now, or do you see kind of what I think I'm seeing, which is some people responding and some people getting worse?
Are you talking in terms of COVID?
COVID, yeah. I think people were traumatized by this thing, and the government overreach and just everything. People were in a delusional state almost. They were so panicky.
I think after vaccine, I do see people, at least those who are getting vaccinated, they are okay, or they are doing their research, due diligence of what to do next. Same with me. Until I was vaccinated, I didn't travel to see my sister. I mean, I haven't seen her. We both live in States. So we are, I would say, as making informed decisions.
Any other than keep yourself informed and making good decisions, other resiliency techniques, anything we can do to be more resilient in the face of all the nonsense we've been going through? Anything for,
I think
for kids, because that's what you spoke to last time, and you were a kid and you just got with it. You just got it going.
Right. I would say for me, what has been best, take one day at a time and reflect, because that's what I did past 1 year.
But reflect in what sense? This is great advice. Reflect in what sense? Reflect on reality, on your condition, gratitude for what you have. What do you mean reflect?
Reflect on one, basically, what you have, and then reflect on we are still better than others. I mean, we have food to eat, and we're living in the greatest country. And I tell that to people because I have lived in like 6 continents, so many countries, and we may have our differences, but we still have things to eat, drink, and I see down. You know what I've learned, Dr. Drew?
Yes, ma'am.
When we are in such situations, yes, resiliency is one thing, but just putting things in perspective.
I think it's great advice. I think gratitude and being, even if you don't feel grateful, pay attention to what you should be grateful for. And then perspectivalism. I think that's really good. And in terms of putting things in perspective, is it things like important relationships? Is that what you want to make sure you're
absolutely relationships, your family, your friends, your good health, things to eat, and just seeing what's happening in the world. I've extensively traveled in Africa, and if you compare any developing countries, I think we are much more, I would say, we are definitely better.
It's interesting. You mentioned, by the way, Susan's back. Vinny, cousin Vinny says hi to you. She's talking to you. Oh, she hasn't put her headset on yet.
I was listening.
Okay, good.
Hey, Susan.
You mentioned food a couple of times. I don't know enough about your story. Did you have starvation as part of the deprivation when you were in trouble?
Not really. I got fortunate because my parents were working, so they could continue. Mm-hmm. But I went to, as part of giving back, I went to refugee camps and I saw people. One thing I would like to tell people in the audience, when the media shows about any developing countries or the war zones, we see all that, people dirty and these... basically everything torn apart, the house is not in rubbles. Mm-hmm. All these people were well-to-do people, wealthy people, and they are there because of this war and terrorism, and it's not their fault. So we have to be very compassionate when we see refugees and when we see immigrants, when we see other people. Just be compassionate, because you know what, nobody wants to leave their country, to be very honest, until it's for something like this, something or for betterment. So I that's what I've learned. Like when I said putting things in perspective, that has helped me a lot in terms of resiliency and basically not worrying about, oh my God, I don't have this, I don't have that. But that's what I wanted to
be thankful for what you do have. Great. Vinny, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye, right. Susan. Bye, Dr. Drew.
Bye now.
Nice to hear from you.
Yeah, really, really. She always, that's why I want her to do a TED Talk. It's not that it's so much inspiring, but it's grounding what she has to say. I'm going to take a little break. We got more calls ahead. Some of you have your hands up there. I will get you guys in mere moments, and let's take a little break. I'll be right back. Anyone who's watched me over the years knows that I'm obsessed with Hydrolyte. In my opinion, the best oral rehydration product on the market. I literally use it every day. My family uses it. When I had COVID, I'm telling you, Hydrolyte contributed to my recovery, kept me hydrated. Now, with things finally reopening back around the country, the potential exposure to the common cold is always around. And like always, Hydrolyte has got your back. Hydrolyte Plus Immunity, my new favorite, starts with their fast-absorbing electrolytes and adds a host of great ingredients. Plus, each single serving easy pour drink mix contains 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, 300 milligrams of elderberry extract, Hydrolyte Plus Immunity comes in convenient, easy-to-pour sticks that rapidly dissolve in water, make a great tasting drink, has 75% less sugar than your typical sports drink. Uses all natural flavors, gluten-free, dairy-free, caffeine-free, non-GMO, and even vegan. Hydrolyte Plus Immunity is also now available in ready-to-drink bottles at the Walmart next to the pharmacy, or as always, you can find it by visiting hydrolyte.com/Dr. Drew. Again, that is HYDRALYTE.com/DRDREW. Be sure to use the code Dr. Drew 25 for a special discount. I am so grateful for our friends at Blue Microphones. Not only have they completely changed what our show sounds like, they've given me headphones so I can monitor things better. This is the mic for millions of creative people, and now I know why. I'm so grateful for them completely changing the quality of our audio. You'll find Blue mics like Yeti and the Mouse, which we're using here, both in pro studios and home studios, literally all over the world. Their popular Yeti caster is a Blue Yeti microphone, plus a boom arm system that's behind many of your favorite podcasts. I run into them all the time, and now I know why. If you've ever thought about creating your own podcast or YouTube channel, Blue can make you sound and look great. Just visit bluemic.com and click Get Started, and you can start telling your story. All right, we are back. I'm asking Brandon if he wants to come up to discuss something with me, if he's interested.
So, by the way, I've already packed my Hydrolyte.
Okay, good. Yes, please do that, please.
I probably will have a hangover one of those days.
All right, Anna, let's get Anna out here. Anna, what's going on? Oh, no, Brandon came up. Hey, Brandon. Was that different Brandon, though, right? Brandon, I'm not sure you're the same Brandon that I was trying to get up here.
Is that Brandon?
Your hand wasn't up, so I don't want to bring somebody up whose hand wasn't up. Uh-oh, servers are struggling right now. That's interesting. That's the first time that has happened.
You can bring up a few people at the same time and they can stay muted.
Susan, I'm disconnected from Clubhouse, so I can't do anything right now.
Oh, are you?
Can you hear me?
I hear you. What's going on?
Here we are.
Yes, same Brandon.
Okay, same Brandon. Do you want to talk about that?
I just wanted to, my question, I was getting to it. I tend to ramble. Do you think there could be a correlation between how much we're seeing of
yes. Well, I don't know. I think all the mental health stuff could be affected by estrogens. That's just simply the way it is. But do you want to talk about some mental health stuff yourself?
You want to talk about my heroin use? Yeah, 20 years and I'm still stuck on it. I quit drinking though.
Good. That's progress. What about some Suboxone? Let's get you off this stuff.
Yeah, I have some Suboxone. I was trying to get on it for a long time. That the jump is kind of brutal sometimes.
It can be. Why don't you find a doctor? I remember having this conversation with you before. Why don't you find a doctor who really knows how to make that transition for you?
Well,
can you do that?
You know one? Because I'm in Indiana and they don't seem to drug addicts around here.
Oh my God.
I had one and I believe he's in Maryville, Indiana. The problem is it's right next to Gary, Indiana, where I drove to get my drugs. All the rehab facilities were right there.
Right.
I didn't trust myself not to run off.
I understand. I understand. And you unless you were fully transitioned over to Suboxone, you probably would. So that's good judgment. But I just want to say we are pulling for you. It's serious, my friend. You know, a little extra fentanyl in the mix, and it's curtains. You understand that?
No, yeah.
You got to deal with this sooner than later. How old are you now?
41.
It's time.
Yeah, I'm in an IoT treatment, but it's the facilities we have here are not.
Yeah, I don't know how they can treat you while you're still using heroin. You got to stop. We got to get you detoxed or at least transition over to something else. You might be somebody that methadone might need to be considered for. Have you thought about that?
I will never touch that.
That's fine. I'm okay with that. I know the misery of methadone, but again, then get on the Suboxone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I was going to do a taper, which is what they did to me at this last rehab, and it worked very well. It was it was you'd go the 36 hours or so, and you'd take 2 milligrams 3 times a day.
But maybe you need a little bit of short-term maintenance. Maybe try to stay on maintenance for a little while just to get yourself stabilized. Not a big dose. Listen, if you can get down to below 8 milligrams, you're in pretty good shape. You really are.
I won't go above 8.
Well, you need to get detoxed. That may be what the problem. You may not be using enough at the beginning, right?
Well, we did 6 at this rehab. I was there twice. It was a great place. COVID killed it, but it was like 4 days.
Okay. Well, yeah, it can be fast. No. You can get pretty quick results, but it's sort of too fast for you. You've failed that. You need to kind of get covered for a little while. Listen, man, I just want to wish you the best. I get how tough it is. I get it, but you got to get on it. You got to do it. You can't let day after day pass. Okay.
Well, I did quit drinking. That put me in the hospital. So I thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Let's get the rest of it. Let's get all the way home. Anna, I see you up there. Did you have a question?
Yes.
I do.
Yes, it's my first time on here. So, so yeah, I just I'm one of the women that are struggling to get pregnant. I guess in this era. But here's the deal. Here's my argument against the plastic argument. Everyone that I know has no issue getting pregnant. And they actually have a lot of kids, and they have a different problem where they get pregnant too easily. And I have a different issue where I can't really find support emotionally for my situation right now, because I'm pretty devastated that I'm 34 and it hasn't happened yet. And my gynecologist really disappointed me the last time I saw her. So
how long have you been getting treatment?
What do you mean? I haven't been treated yet. She hasn't even diagnosed me yet, fully.
Why don't you go see a fertility specialist?
Well, so my question is also, from my understanding, it's that insurance doesn't always cover that.
Correct.
I know
that's true.
For my previous.
But here's the deal. Listen, people have got to get over the idea that just because they're seeing something, therefore they know what statistically is happening on a state or national level. Fact is, fertility problems are up. They are up. They are. And even though I understand you're exposed to people that are having lots of children, yes, of course, there are lots of people having most people are having children, but that doesn't mean that the data is not skewed over time. And it just simply is. Now, one of the reasons is people are waiting later to have kids. And that immediately compounds the story, compounds the problems. But there is a ton of data on problems with estrogen metabolism, issues with testosterone lowering effects, testicular size, all sorts of things have been moving across time in a direction that suggests that there's a bit of estrogen exposure that may or may not be true, but it's an interesting theory. And fertility problems have a myriad of causes. And you need to be carefully diagnosed so they can target specifically what the issue is.
Okay. So when I navigate the medical field for this, fertility specialist specifically, right?
Not a gynecologist. Somebody who treats fertility issues. And and has the partner been assessed?
Well, no, he's had 3 kids of his own in the past. Maybe he might need to be reassessed recently because they're all pretty grown, all of his children.
Correct. He needs to be assessed now. Things change with time for sure, and it may be him. It may there just in broad strokes. There's multiple issues that include how the eggs are forming, the health of the eggs, how the eggs are transported, whether or not there can be adequate implantation, what his sperm health is like, what happens to his sperm, and how your body reacts to his sperm, how your sperm and his sperm and your egg relate to each other. Each of these every step of that way has complex physiologies, very complex. And there's treatments for disorders of each step along the way if there is any specific problem that they can diagnose. Okay? All right. Yeah, definitely. It sounds like you really want to do this. So I would do it. The treatments are quite good,
I was just upset that how come it hasn't happened naturally for me, a lot of my friends, but
yeah, if you've been trying for a year and you have not been, what's that?
Longer than that.
Yeah, if you've been trying for a year and nothing's happened, you just see a fertility specialist for sure. Especially when age, the reality is aging is the clock is one of the enemies right now, and you got to get on that too. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Good luck. All right. Again, those with your hands up, you're going to be, in addition to coming on here on Clubhouse, you'll be on a restream on YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope. Katrina, I'm going to ask for you to come on up. Thank you guys all for your great questions. Katrina, what's going on?
Hi.
Hey there.
I guess my question is actually about relationships, but not really just general question about relationships, but people who. So I'm an ex-cult member, and I've been slowly reprogramming, going through the deprogramming process for years now, and just really trying to make my husband understand what I'm going through, which is so hard for him to do because he didn't live there. He doesn't know.
Right.
And obviously there's some aspects of my life that I keep doing unconsciously, and it's affected by the way I was raised.
Do you mind? Let me just get, if you don't mind, are you okay talking about historical specifics?
Sure.
You were raised in a cult, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And by cult, what kind of cult? Were you religious cult or?
Scientology. Yeah.
You're in Scientology. And and have you there's a lot of people that have been working with Scientologists to help them sort of come through this process. How long have you been working on this?
Oh, this is really started coming out of it, like programming and everything, about 5 years now.
Okay.
6 years.
And is it steadily improving?
Oh yes, it's improving.
Okay. And so what are the things that you think that your husband can't understand?
I think for me, like talking about and even talking with other, like I wasn't just a Scientologist, I was in the high clergy, so I was part of their high elite seer members, so pretty much a slave since I was a child. And for me to I feel like sometimes for me it's actually therapeutic to talk to other people that I knew that left and out now.
It's a PTSD. It's much like veterans supporting each other. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like, but army buddies exchanging their war stories.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But my husband sometimes goes, just get over it. You live in it now. Like, stop harping on it. It's making you sad. It's making you upset. Sometimes after these conversations, it re-traumatizes you.
That's true.
And
have you had trauma therapy per se?
Not specifically trauma therapy. No.
Maybe that would be the next stage, so that you can regulate back. Because what your husband is telling you is that you're unregulated after these interactions. My God, it sounds like you live in a bird aviary, and so is that birds?
Yes, it is.
Okay. But I would recommend considering see what trauma therapy does. It helps you access those emotional places that are feeling traumatized and sort of bring them in with the rest of your emotional system so you can regulate. And I think maybe, what's the matter, Susan? Susan's laughing at the bird sounds, I guess.
Sorry.
It's okay. I think they're great.
These crackles and they're very loud.
It's all good. But I would think that I think it's worthy to listen to what your husband's telling you, which is, hey, I don't like seeing you upset. And there's something that's, it looks like a re-traumatization when you talk to people. While I wouldn't discourage you from I don't think you should avoid talking to people that you're sharing war stories with. I think that's very important to get that support. I think it's good for your PTSD generally, but it might be very evocative. And if you haven't had trauma therapy, you have to build that system of regulation to be able to tolerate some of this. So that would be, it's not like you in trauma therapy, don't think that they're going to make you experience things you don't want to experience. They're just going to sort of build an ability to regulate emotions that are left behind somewhere, that are kind of walled off and you kind of don't want to deal with. But it's not overwhelming. It's not painful necessarily. It's not shattering. People want to avoid it because that's how your brain is built. The brain just don't like to deal with trauma. And it's not that bad. So I would look into that, Katrina. I think that's probably the way to do it. How'd you get out?
I was actually kicked out.
Or something happened, or
I was raped, and it was my fault that I was raped, and I broke the rules. So, blaming the victim, basically.
Right.
I wasn't worthy afterwards.
Right. And then you have to leave your whole family and friends and everything you've always known behind. Is that?
Yeah, and then you know, in order for you to stay in touch with your family, you have to continue be a Scientologist, which I did for a few years, and then kind of realized that this is all pointless because I'm not really even having a relationship with them because we live in such a different world that we don't even have anything in common anymore. So then I pretty much told them I was done, and then of course they go through the shunning process, declaring, and that's it. My whole family, my mother, my grandmother, my stepfather, they're all still in, Scientology clergy, Sea Org organization.
Incredible. There has to be another piece of this too, which is grief. Have you properly grieved all that? That's tremendous loss.
Yes, I have seen, I did receive a lot of therapy, and that was one of the good advices that the therapist gave me because I was going through these like emotional roller coasters. I hate my mother. How could she do this to me? But then, just that animal instinct kicks in that, well, she's my mother. I do love her, and I want her in my life.
It's also the normal stages of grieving, right? It's deal making and anger and, sadness and regret, all that stuff. I mean, there's a bunch of stages. Not everyone goes through all the stages, but those are normal reactions.
My therapist pretty much told me the same thing. Like, you're going through the stages of grief. Like, you need to go through them, be aware that that's what's going on, and let you feel. Because for years I just shoved it, and I was like, I am not dealing with this. I'm just moving on, and I kind of moved on without addressing anything. And then it started to hit me really badly. It would just come back in waves.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe one of the reasons why my husband says that, because in the past, it would just be like, these waves of depression.
I understand. And it's interesting that normally I can pick up when people have unresolved grief. I did not pick up that when talking to you. And so here's the good news. You have that kind of strength and resilience where you are able to do tough emotional work. I'm telling you, I'm certain that a little bit of trauma work, like EMDR, that kind of thing, just sort of just think of it as physical therapy for your brain. I really think that would have some that would sort of help you get all the way where you want to be. Okay.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
All right, Katrina. Thank you for sharing the story. It's an incredibly brave. You realize it's an incredible story, right?
Oh, that's not even all of it.
but I mean, it's to leave everything you've known is really rough, and then to, be able to rebuild yourself and your life and be whole. That's phenomenal. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You bet. That's Christina. I'm kind of running out of time here. Susan, you still back there? You want? Should I keep taking calls, or Susan? Sorry. Are you there? Hold on a second. The producer's coming to the podium.
On YouTube and trying to boot a troll.
We have a troll on the.
Yeah, Professor Anthrax. He's given it. He's just being.
I did not see him on. Have you blocked him so I can't see him or something? Interesting. I didn't see him on the restream. In any event, do you want me to address anything he's saying, perhaps?
Unless you want to address the word "I hate fucking dogs" and.
I don't think we can say the F word on YouTube or Clubhouse.
Sorry, and also hate dogs, and I don't know.
So it's just nonsensical.
Just
nonsensical stuff.
No, he's a scary person. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it today. So
everybody else,
well, if he hates dogs, then that's a permanent ban. I'm just banning him from everything.
I know we're all dog people here. How dare you? I'm deeply offended. I think we're about wrapping up here. Yes, Susan, is that about right? Well, let me take one more call. Let's get Charles up here. Charles, what's going on? Oh, got to get Charles up here. Well, he doesn't seem to be coming to the podium. So that might be a sign. That might be a sign unto us that we should be wrapping things up. So tomorrow, hello. Oh, wait, there he is. Hi, Charles. What's going on?
Okay. I just watched a video with Dr. Bean, and he interviewed a brilliant clinician, Daryl DeMello in India. And Dr. DeMello has a regimen, and I had a comment in regards to Vinny's thing about mucormycosis.
Okay.
Many doctors in India up front give, I don't know if they give prednisone or Decadron.
Well, both, but you really want to get Mucor. The way you get that is with the nasal steroids. If you're diabetic and you put a bunch of nasal steroids in, that's what predisposes to mucormycosis.
Oh, okay. But anyway, this clinician, he doesn't give prednisone or Decadron up front. He gives colchicine.
There is some colchicine data up there, but Decadron is one of the things that kept me out of the hospital, maybe saved my life. It's not for everybody, but it definitely worked for me. And monoclonal antibodies are the treatment. That's the treatment that people should be getting.
But the other thing
and just so you know, a Mucor, Mucor is a nasty. I wish I could remember the other one that I've seen also in addition to Mucor in diabetics. But one case, it went from the sinus and ate through her eyeball in about 3 hours. That's how virulent and how aggressive Mucor can be in a diabetic, at least. So I'm sorry, the other thing?
Vitamin D.
Yep.
He has a prophylactic regimen, and his prophylactic regimen is really centered around vitamin D.
Yep, vitamin D is helpful. But
he recommends levels of during COVID times, 60 to 100.
In terms of blood levels?
Yes, nanogram per deciliter.
Yeah.
And he says, as a clinician who's seeing tons and tons of COVID patients, he checks his vitamin D level regularly, and he tries to keep it around 90.
Well, I had high vitamin D, high zinc, and I still got COVID. And look, this all going to be moot soon because there's going to be an antiviral that's coming out. It's a amazing product. I hope it withstands the phase 3 trial. I'm sure it will. But once we have a really effective antiviral, that'll be that. Then we can treat COVID early, aggressively, and it won't just be on the margins like we're doing now. Yes, these things are good. Zinc is good. Vitamin D is good. Ivermectin has some utility. Fluvoxamine probably has some utility. These are all things on the margins that have a few percentile changes in this. I used all of these things, still had terrible COVID. I can tell you that the monoclonal antibody and the steroids stopped my disease in its tracks. It was massively different than any of the other therapeutics that were attempted to try to get this thing. Now, did the earlier interventions make my disease somewhat less? Maybe, but it's on the margins. It's on the margins. It's not as though it's going to prevent illness or going to prevent serious. It's going to help on the margins. And so, yes, we should pay attention to it, and it should be deployed. And the fact that early treatments weren't deployed, I think, is a travesty. Physicians should be using their judgment and not just sending people home. We're going to talk tomorrow to tomorrow, Friday? Yeah. Tomorrow, Dr. Patterson and Dr. Yo are coming in here to give us an update on the COVID long hauler syndrome. They have covidlonghaulers.com, and one of their areas of study is ivermectin. So they will be discussing ivermectin and fluvoxamine and its effect on the long hauler syndrome and on the cytokine profiles.
And the praises and pitfalls of vaccines.
Is that what they said?
I think they're doing something about that.
Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about vaccine therapy, both the positive and the negative. I think it's important to talk about all aspects of vaccine therapy, in that informed consent requires that. And if we're going to have people getting informed consent for their vaccine, they should be looking at all aspects of it. I feel very strongly people should be getting the vaccine, but should a 12-year-old get it? Should a 6-year-old get it? These are different questions. But if you're out there moving around and you have we have a collective obligation. I've said this over and over again. You got to remember that suppressing the viral replication is something we are all responsible for. And that is why one of the reasons we take the vaccine is so it doesn't replicate in us and a mutant emerge. Now, if you follow my logic, the United States should be helping the rest of the world as well, because there's lots of replication going on around the world. One of the interesting questions is, should we be vaccinating people like me that really don't need the vaccine? And shouldn't those vaccines be going overseas? And how about the vaccines we're wasting? We're wasting lots of vaccines every day. Those could have been good. Those could have gone overseas to other countries as well. So, look, we have all of an obligation to participate in this and decrease the viral replication so the mutants don't emerge. But there's an international problem that needs to be dealt with as well, and we should be participating in that also. So, the individual determination of what one individual's risk is a very individual choice, and it should be based on informed consent. You should be getting all the information you can and then making a good decision. You should, and by the way, you could think to yourself, this is probably not a good choice for me, but I'm going to do it anyway to decrease the potential of replication. That's my responsibility to the world. Even though it's not a great risk for me, I'm still going to do it. So I urge everyone to take that vaccine. I'm very pro-vaccine, but I'm also pro transparency and having real discussion about some of the issues, so you can make an informed decision on your own. I don't want people going, no one told me this could happen. I think we and again, this idea of people getting the vaccine who don't need it, unnecessary medical procedures is something deeply troubling to me. But no one seems to be concerned about that these days. They just say, get the vaccine, which I did. And as we're hearing, by the way, Susan, I talked to a guy today on a Dr. Drew podcast who forged his PCR results to travel around the world and forged his vaccine results and found that in most countries, they actually don't require the vaccine. They just require a PCR, and then he forged that. So this is how crazy things have become. They want us to do all these things.
One of your old PCRs
I'm just saying that how do I know what they will accept? I have antibody profiles. Are they going to accept that? I could have made it up. I am getting a PCR. I've got a QR code from my county that shows I got a vaccine. How many of these things are you going to be able to confirm are real? It's just so weird what we're doing right now. But anyway,
so on a lighter note, you want to hear some good news?
Sure.
On YouTube, we have a fan, Miss Dunn. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Hydrolite is coming out with a product with collagen.
Oh, interesting. That's interesting.
So that's good for all of us people who have terrible hair and nails.
Interesting. I'm a big fan of collagen supplementation, so that's good.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, listen, we appreciate you guys listening in the clubhouse, in the audience. We're going to have to wrap up at Clubhouse. Thank you so much. We'll be back and do another one. Do you think next week, Susan?
Maybe
next week. So I'm going to, as we say, I'm going to right now leave quietly. Thank you guys.
Bye-bye.
And thank you, Caleb Nation, for producing the show today at a distance. It worked just fine. And tomorrow morning, again, 9 a.m. Pacific time. This is a novel time for us to go do this. It is 9 a.m. Pacific time. Dr. Yo and Dr. Patterson. Dr. Patterson.
Right. I have to get up in the morning.
Dr. Patterson is a famous pathologist, virologist who was instrumental in the identification of HIV and AIDS. And now he has put his brain in his labs to work on COVID. And he and Dr. Yo have some new information on, essentially, we'll talk about long hauler syndrome. We'll talk about cytokine profiles. We will talk about CCR5 and its importance in long hauler syndrome. We'll talk about Fauci, fluvoxamine, ivermectin, and Maravirac.
All the bad words that we used to not be able to say.
That's true. And Maravirac, right. Now, Dr. Fauci saying that we can... he's contemplating the possibility that a virus was, accidentally released from a lab, suddenly opened the floodgates to everybody in my profession being able to talk again. And so we will be talking about Maravirac, ivermectin, and fluvoxamine, all of which have utility in the long hauler syndrome. We'll talk about their data. They have the covidlonghaulers.com is where you can go to see their data and their information and their protocols and get involved if you want. Yeah. So until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, I will say thank you so much, and we'll see you then.